Right, there we go. We're up and running. To start off with, let's just do a call in. Go ahead and open up your chat and tell us where you are. Where are you signing in from? You can just tell us what city you're in. So I'm going to go ahead and say Cape Town. We're down in the Cape.
Durban.
Nairobi. Wow, first one out the gates. Amazing. All the way from Nairobi. And Joburg. I see lots of Joburgs coming in. A couple of Durbans. Pinetown. Excellent. It's the Fraus. Hello, Fraus. How are you? It's good to see you
Good,
again.
thanks, and you, Mark. Yeah, great to see you.
Very well, thanks, Gareth. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Salt Rock. Yes, we have a growing Durban community. That's wonderful. And a lot more in Gauteng this year, which is really exciting. Cape Town. Excellent. Wonderful. Aubrey, good to see you again. Welcome back. Excited to see Dimpo and hear how things have been progressing for him. I'm sure he's been keeping you busy. And Lesotho, wonderful. Okay, signing in from Lesotho. Okay. Well, most of us this evening are parents and guardians, and it's really good to see you all. We do have a few faces in the meeting as well who are teachers who are joining us, and I'll give them a chance in a moment just to say hello to you all. But we're really wanting to share a few things with you this afternoon, which are going to be helpful in setting us up for the year to come. We have been so excited over the last couple of months to see COA growing and expanding all over the country, both in terms of learners joining and grades. We're expanding upwards in grades. We were grades 4 to 9 last year. We're expanding grades 10 and 11 this year. And next year will be our first matric year. And then, of course, we're expanding in staff as well. And our staff has more than tripled, which is really exciting for the launch of this year. And the staff have been hard at work in the background through the course of this week, getting set up and getting prepared for all of the young men and women who are going to be joining us and who are going to be in the pods and be in the classes. We're really excited for what's to come. But let's go ahead. One more thing, one more check-in in the chat. Why don't you go ahead and type what grade you're joining us in. So what grade, and if you have multiple grades, you can just pop them in there. Let's see who's joining us in different grades. That's a real spread. I think grade 8. I think off the top of my head, thinking back to the enrollments, I think grade 8 is actually our busiest grade. That's our fullest grade. And then we've got lots in the grade 4, 5s, and 6s as well. Got a nice group in the grade 9s getting ready for that jump up to the FET next year, which is really exciting. And we've got some wonderful news to share with you about subject specialist teachers who are going to be helping the grade 7, 8s, 9s in particular make that transition up. Wonderful. Okay, and then a couple of teachers. Excellent. Let's take a moment to say hello to our teachers. Jason, why don't you unmute and say hello to everybody and tell us who you are?
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Jason Hutchison, and I am a FET history teacher. So that's my specialty, grade 10 to 12. And then I've also been brought in as the academic head to ensure that we are meeting that tip-top standard and that we're striving for excellence. And so I'm here this evening, although I won't be working with your learners yet, or your children yet. They'll be in my hands as they move up, just to let you know where we're going, and that I'm even in the background sitting, working hard on curriculum plans and development. I'm listening with one ear and working on the other side. So, we're definitely moving onwards and upwards, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you over the next year or 2 or 3 or 4 as we move forward.
Great. Thank you, Jason, and welcome to the COA team. It's good to have Jason on board. He brings a wealth of experience with him as head of operations at a no-fees school in Cape Town up until last year. And we're fortunate to have him join our team as head of academics. And he is both a wonderful history teacher and an excellent academic head. He's the type of history teacher that makes me want to do history. When we're in staff meetings and we're doing planning documents and things which normally can be quite tedious, Jason just talks about history in a way that makes me want to audit his class. That's the type of person that we have doing history here. So really excited to have him on board. And also that head of academics role, when Jason talks about academic program, we're not just focused on matric. He talks right down to grade 4. And if we had grade 3, 2, 1, he'd be talking about grade 3, 2, 1 as well, because he really sees the progression as super important. So good to have you. Who else do we have in terms of teachers? I know that we've got Chama. Why don't you give us a wave, Chama? There's Chama. Chama joins us in grade 8. Am I right, Chama? Your grade 8 pod? That's right.
Yes.
And all the way from?
Cape Town.
Cape Town. Wonderful. I think I saw Esmeralda as well. Esmeralda's on the other side of the country. Esmeralda, where are you? She's still in the call.
Yeah, I am.
Aha, here you are. Tell us where you
Hi,
are.
everyone. Oh, sorry, I need to tell you who I am. I'm Ismail. I am from Limpopo, and I will be the teacher, the pod teacher for grade 6 and 7.
Wonderful. Thanks, Esmeralda. And I don't know if I haven't seen any others pop in. If there are any other teachers, you can shout at me. Otherwise, we're going to get up and running. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and present my screen for you guys. And I've got a little presentation that I'm going to walk us through. And then after the presentation, we can ask some questions. Okay. All right. Please will one of two of you just give me a bit of a thumbs up if you can see the Co-Academy Parent Information Session slide on your screen. Goldblatts, can you see that okay? All right, excellent. Okay, here we go. Well, we wanted to get across as much helpful practical information as we can in this session and just sort of gear you towards what's coming for the year. So the first thing just to remind you of is, particularly in grade 4 to 9, your experience at Co-Academy is going to be quite different to, firstly, a traditional school program, but even what we would call school on a screen. So when we set up Co-Academy, many of you will know this, and it might be the reason that you've joined COA, is that we know that taking an old model and presenting it on a new technology often causes disconnect, it causes disengagement. So if we were to take an old school system and present it on a new technology, such as a computer or online, we get those disconnects, and we hear parents and learners and teachers talking about the benefits of online learning, but actually there's a lot of disengagement as well if we're following old systems on new technology. So we've really moved away from quite a few what we would consider traditional approaches to schooling, things that we assume make a school. Things like all grade 8s must do the same timetable at the same time. We know that that's something that we assume is what makes a school, but actually in the online space, asynchronous timetables and individualized timetables actually make more sense. So what you'll find as you go is that we're starting to debunk a lot of the things that we think are what schooling systems look like. And we're building something that makes sense for the online space, is native to the online space, is intuitive to our children, and really benefits learning over everything else. And so at the heart of everything that we do are COA pods. Rather than school on a screen where the teacher is the centralized focus, and all 20, 30, 40, even 50 in some online schools, children are connecting to the teacher remotely. What we're moving towards is smaller online classes. So we really want to cap our classes at only 8 in a class. And what that lets us do is maintain high engagement. Engagement with each other, engagement between parents and the school, and engagement between the child and their work. We really want them to be engaging in their work in a meaningful way and engaging with each other in a way that's building socio-emotional skills and not isolating us in the online space. All right. Our new staff have joined us for 2022, and here's a snapshot from one of our orientation sessions earlier, and this just gives you a glimpse into some of the people who are on the team for this year. And we've got some wonderful people joining us from all over the country. We've got staff in, I think, just about every province. We've definitely got staff across all of the major centers. And so a lot of these faces will be familiar, not just when you see them on your child's screen, but also when we have face-to-face socials in the different centers and we get together and meet each other in person. A lot of these faces will be familiar to you. And if you want to reach out to any of them, and I'll remind you of this later, to reach anybody on our staff, it's our first name followed by @coaacademy.com. So if you want to reach me, you can email me at mark@coaacademy.com. And the same is true for your teacher. Your pod teacher will be reaching out to you in the next few days. So do expect an email from your pod teacher introducing themselves. They'll attach a picture of themselves. They'll also email your child to their COA Academy account to introduce themselves, have a picture of themselves there, So do keep an eye out on your emails for that, and feel free to reach out to your teachers. We really want that sense of high engagement to be true between you and the school as well. So when you have a question or a query or a point of interest, particularly if it's going to help your child be more connected to their pod or to their work, reach out to your teacher. Go ahead and email them. So Chama would be chama@koaacademy.com, and we'd really like to hear from you and be engaged with you. Another one of our staff members who's joining us this year, which we're really excited about, we have a new head of culture. Majosi is a SAMA-nominated and much-loved musician. I believe he hails from Durban, but is now living in Cape Town, in Sea Point. And we're really excited, firstly, for Majosi personally, because his Apple plays for his hit single Darling have just reached 1 million plays on Apple Music. So we're really excited for him in his personal music career. But as a school, what we're super excited about in terms of Majosi joining our staff as head of culture is we are passionate about leveraging the best that unbundled education has to offer your child. So what we want to make sure is that as we're transitioning into online learning, or for those of us who are going from one online school to join Co-Academy, what we're wanting to help our families do is leverage the real benefits of what the online space has to offer. In terms of unbundling, what traditionally we would understand as a one-stop shop, we were bound by geographic location and the school that's nearby us and what that particular school has to offer and how well they do it. Those walls are being broken down, and we see this progression across all technologies. The way that Forbes puts it, they say any technology through the history of man, if you follow its trajectory, it's always become more bundled initially, while that economically makes sense. And then it gets to a point where it actually makes sense to unbundle it and start to rebundle it in ways that give parents more sort of a leverage over what they're opting into and what they're not opting into. So you'll find that in terms of finances, in terms of time, in terms of opportunities, we're wanting to help you tap into the things which are going to give you the most benefit for your child and your family. And part of that is culture and the arts. And culture and the arts is quite a difficult thing to approach in the online space. We know that doing something like a painting or playing in a band or dance club are quite challenging to do in the online space. And so what we want to do is we want to bring Majosi onto the team, who not only has wonderful insight into that world, but has lived it firsthand. So Majosi will address you in future meetings. He'll talk to you about how he wishes that when he was young, he had a school like COA to tap into so that he could really leverage his passions, his interests, and lean into his strengths from a young age. And we're wanting to help parents do that as well. So Majosi is going to be leading us as a staff. He's already started coaching us through how to think through unbundling education and maximize those opportunities. He's going to be speaking to our staff. He's going to be speaking to our kids. And he's also going to be engaging with you as families. Learner orientation is coming up on Thursday. So we are only 2 days away from the learner orientation. This is happening both Thursday and Friday this week. It starts at 8:30 and will run until about 12 on each day. The 8:30 start on Thursday is going to be an all-school start. We'll call it an all-school assembly, if you would. And we'll all be together on a Google Meet, and we'll lead that session and welcome the boys and girls. I'll say hello, Jason will say hello, Majosi will say hello, and we'll introduce them to some of the teachers and get them excited about what's to come. And then through the course of Thursday and Friday, we are very intentionally but very patiently going to walk them through all the systems and structures that they need to know in order to thrive at Co-Academy. So one of the things that we really aim for is that you as the parents can be as involved as you would like. This is one of the benefits of being in an online school, is that you fall under the umbrella of homeschooling. And so you have the opportunity to tap into as much of what your child is doing as you would like to. You really do have a lot more influence and a lot more say over their experience of school in the online space. And so we would really want to offer that to you. But we also don't want to assume that you either need to be a teacher or a tech expert. So when your child is having, questions about their science curriculum, we want them to know that they can come to us. When they're having questions about being able to log into a platform, we want to be able to be there to provide that support for them. We don't want them to feel like they're sort of needing to rely on you if you are busy working in the office next door, you know. So we're going to be walking them through all of the systems and structures that they need to know, and patiently teaching them those one at a time. So the first, even up to the first week, is going to be a bit of an on-ramp, and we're going to be feeding more and more information as we go, as they get up and running. They can join those sessions initially through Google Calendar. So I would really encourage you, before they come to orientation on Thursday, log them in, set them up, and go to Google Calendar. You can either just search for Google Calendar, or you can type in calendar.google.com, and that'll take you to their Google Calendar, and you should see an invite for Thursday morning for the first session. After there, we'll be drip feeding in the rest of their sessions, which they can always access through Google Calendar. So if they forget how to get into the meetings, Google Calendar is their point of entry. And then just to mention that with the rapid growth that we've been experiencing over the last few months, orientation is for all learners. It's for all of our returning and new learners. We'll be doing it together. That gives us an opportunity to teach our returning learners some wonderful new systems and processes that we have in place, as well as partnerships with new academic platforms and new opportunities for them, as well as meeting their new pod mates, because we're all in fresh new pods for the year. And so they get to meet their friends and build right from the start. Let's talk briefly about IT setup and support. So as I mentioned earlier, we really want to be there to support your child, particularly in the early weeks with the IT side of things. But there are a few things that I'd really like for you to do with them before they join us on Thursday. The first is make sure that they're logged into their Koha Academy account. There was an email which was sent to you from it@kohaacademy.com. And that is your port of call for all things IT related. So if you have any tech questions, reach out to IT. And the person manning that station most of the time, her name is Debbie. And Debbie is a wonderful and very experienced IT expert who will be happy to assist you with any of your tech questions, particularly on Thursday morning. If your child is struggling to connect to their first session at 8:30, Debbie would be great to reach out to at it@kohaacademy.com. But before Thursday, won't you log them into their account and just test their account? Make sure that they're able to access their Gmail and their Google Calendar. Secondly, do a line speed test. Even if you know what your home line speed is, please won't you run a speed test? You can visit www.speedtest.net and just hit the big go button, and it'll tell you what your line speed is. And we at Koha Academy need a line speed of at least 10 megabytes per second up and down per person connected in the house. So that means that if you are working from home as well, and your child is working from home, you would need 20 megabytes per second. That's download speed. The upload speed doesn't need to match all the way up. So as long as your upload speed is at least 10, then for each person connected, you need another 10 download speed, just to make sure that they're really well connected to the internet. One of the things that you will have seen in the parent information pack that we sent out a couple months ago is the importance of making sure that our kids have no barriers in the online space. One of the quickest learning killers in the online space is poor connection to each other. So we want to make sure, firstly, that their computer is well set up, it's up to date, and it's capable of running the platforms that they're running. It's fairly entry-level specs that we're asking for, but what we are asking for there is a well-oiled machine. One of the examples that I often give here is I'm regularly when we have tech problems, ask the child, can you tell me a bit about your computer? And one of the things we hear every now and again is, it used to be dad's work computer and it started giving him problems. So he gave it to me and he got a new one. And we think, well, if it's giving dad problems at work, it's probably going to give you problems in the classroom. So make sure that you set your kids up for success with their computers, even an entry-level computer, as long as it's running efficiently. And that line speed is really important. And you'll find that even if your service provider is giving you 10 megabytes per second, you might not actually be getting that in real practice because of things like how far you are from the modem. So when you run that line speed test, do it from their computer at their workstation. And that'll give you a good idea of what their connection is from where they are in the house. Talk briefly about load shedding. Load shedding is a real thing in South Africa. and it seems to be happening more every week. And this is not a problem for us at COA for a couple of reasons. Firstly, our teachers are not teaching the content live, so they're not lecturing a maths lecture, which your child might be missing. Your child is working on individualized platforms, which are set up for them to work asynchronously. So that means if your child misses a period of the day due to load shedding, they can just shift whatever was happening in those hours to a later point in the day. Things that they might not be able to shift would be things like Pod Connect, which is when they're connecting with their pod and their teacher early in the morning between 8 and 9:30. Those are socio-emotionally oriented, EQ, soft skills. So if they miss those, they won't be able to catch them up, but that's okay. It's not academically oriented, so they're not missing content that they then have to go and relearn. They just pick up with their pod the next morning. Check-in, same thing. They would be meeting with their teacher to maybe do an oral presentation or get some feedback on their work. Their teacher will just postpone that to the next day if they're not there. And then thirdly, something like teacher time, which they would book one-on-one teacher support with their teacher. If they miss one of those due to load shedding, they can always just rebook that session when their teacher is next available. Would encourage you though, just to have as few disruptions as possible. One of the fantastic things that you can pick up for your home is a mini UPS, and they're about this big, and they sit behind your modem and they plug in between your wall socket and your modem, and they give you about 4 hours of battery life just on your Wi-Fi. So if your child is working on a laptop that can power itself and your power in your house goes off, all the power will drop, but your child will be able to work on their laptop and the Wi-Fi will be uninterrupted. And so that's a great workaround if you are looking to help them be as uninterrupted as possible. Let's talk about the academic program. This is the nuts and bolts of what we're here for as a school. And when we talk about unbundling of education, we have our eye very much on this ball, and we're wanting to provide your child with the highest quality academics that they can have access to. And so we're leveraging platforms from around the world. We're looking for opportunities to tap into resources which are being developed in South Africa, in the UK, in the States, in Malaysia, in wonderful places around the world who are coming out with incredible opportunities in academic world. And we're able to leverage those as an online school. We don't want to be bound by what we're creating in-house. We are streamlining everything to the South African curriculum. If you want more information on our relationship with the Department of Education, pop onto our website and have a look at the grade 4 to 9 page on our website, or you can have a look in the parent information booklets, which we sent out a couple months ago. And there's a graph there which we explain that talks about how our relationship with the Department of Education works. But in a nutshell, we are registered with the IEB, which stands for International Exams Board, and they're the ones that we write our final grade 12 exams through. And that certificate is obviously full exemption for entrance to university or workplace. And our grade 4 to 9s are also IEB affiliated, and all of our academics streamlined towards the grade 10 to 12 IEB curriculum. In terms of our breakdown of the day, every day, your boys and girls will do 4 things. They'll connect, build, engage, and enrich. That connect time is live. It's a half hour where they connect with their teacher and their pod of 8. Social-emotional developments, we have a lot of fun in those sessions, and we do a lot of relationship building. Build is the part of the day where they do maths, English, Afrikaans, and we treat those subjects as core subjects. And for each of those, we have platforms and courses which the children work through independently and asynchronously. So each child has a platform for maths, platforms for English, platforms for Afrikaans, and they're directed to these platforms and taught how to work through these platforms independently. Our teachers then track their progress, and I'll show you how that progress is fed back to you live every day. And they're obviously given academic support. If a child needs academic support, they might book teacher time with a teacher or have a check-in with the teacher later that day to be able to talk about anything that they need support on any of their platforms. It's all mastery-based, which we love, as opposed to being focused on output and percentage, where if you get 65% for maths, whatever you missed, tough luck, we're moving on, we're going on to the next topic. What we teach our children is it's about mastery, and making mistakes is not a bad thing. And we make mistakes and we learn and we improve until we've mastered something. And when we've mastered it, we move on to the next concept. And all of the platforms that we've chosen and tap into have that theme of mastery and immediate feedback to the child, so that it doesn't take me 6 weeks to realize I don't know how to multiply fractions. It takes me 5 minutes to realize I don't know how to multiply fractions, and it gives me the tools to be able to master it. The third part of the day is engage. This is where we cover all of our content subjects. All of the South African curriculum content for science, technology, geography, history, and so on is built into engage. The boys and girls will be doing short engage tasks which integrate across the subjects, and each of those tasks has an output which is connected to something in the real world. So they might be producing a document for their teacher, or a presentation, or something of the like for their teacher, which shows that they've mastered the information. And we're pulling marks out of all of those as we go. So we don't study science for 6 weeks and then write a test. They'll be doing lots of engaged tasks, and the whole time showing mastery over the content in an applied way. And then we're pulling marks off of that as they go. Last part of the day is called Enrich, and please feel free to reach out to your teacher for Enrich. What we're looking for here are opportunities to tap into your child's interests, your child's personal strengths, and foster passions for what hopefully will become a future career for them. So you've heard me give a couple of examples for this, but we've got people who are passionate about nature, so put them on a National Geographic course and they become level 1 certified National Geographic conservationist. Somebody's passionate about cricket, and so we can do a cricket umpiring course online. Somebody's passionate about coding and robotics. There are great platforms for coding and robotics. And so we work with each child, and as we unpack their particular passions and strengths, place them onto tracks which lean into those. And we've got some new and exciting enrichment programs and platforms coming up, and they're growing all the time. If you either have knowledge of a great enrichment option or have an idea for your child, reach out to us, get in touch with your pod teacher, make some suggestions. We'd love to hear from you on that. And if you have opportunities in your local area to tap into this, feel free to do that as well. We have had parents come back to us and say, my child is particularly passionate about drama, and there's a wonderful drama studio just down the road from us. And we want them to get plugged in there and actually get involved in there every afternoon. So can we make that their enrichment? And we say, that's wonderful, great opportunity. Let's do that. Let's go that way and make it a physical in your area enrichment option. You can see in the bottom of the screen here, there's a snapshot of Google Classroom. For those of you who aren't familiar with Google Classroom, it's a very clean, very intuitive platform for us to have all of the links for all of the child's material in one place. One of the things that we really want to do is be able to access many, many resources and platforms without overwhelming the child and then getting confused in terms of where am I going? Where's that site? What do I do next? Where's the link for that? What order do I do this in? And so what we've done is we've packaged all of these platforms and links and courses into their Google Classroom in a way that's seamless and easy for them to work through. And so they'll be working through Google Classroom as their home base. So if they're ever confused about how do I access that course or where do I find my maths work, it's all based on their Google Classroom. And all of the apps that we use are based out of Google, because Koa Academy is a Google school. And so all of our accounts are synced with all of the Google apps. And so that's why we lean towards them. All right, in terms of dashboards, this is critical for you as the parents and the guardians. Understanding the dashboards really is a key part of the puzzle in terms of responsibility between the teacher, the parent, and the child. So we've always classically thought of that relationship as a triangle. In real life, it's more complicated than a triangle, and we know that. There's more players involved, and there's more realms of responsibility in a school. But really, if we think of those key areas of responsibility and what's the child responsible for, what's the teacher responsible for, what's the parent responsible for, we really want to engage those three in a relationship that's meaningful and flexible and robust. You've probably heard me say before the name Koa, where Koa comes from. Koa is a type of tree. It's an acacia tree, and the wood of the Koa tree is famous for being both strong and flexible. We often think of those two words as opposites, But if you see wedding bands made out of wood, very often they're made from koa wood. And the reason that they're made out of koa wood is because they're malleable and can be bent and shaped, but they're robust and durable and lasting. And so that's what we want both for our systems as a school and for your children as individual human beings, is for them to have this marriage between being robust and being flexible, being adaptive and willing to change and open to risk and adventures, but also at the same time, robust and sure and steady and durable. And so when we think about the responsibilities between the three people, we're really wanting relationships that are flexible, where we're adaptive to you and your needs as a family. And at the same time, what we're offering you is robust and reliable and steady. And so one of the ways we do that is our learner dashboards. I'm actually going to exit this and show you one of the dashboards. So this is one of our sort of demo learner dashboards. This is a dashboard for a child called Beth. And you can see that the dashboard has got different tabs down the left-hand side. And you navigate through the dashboard either by clicking or scrolling on your mouse or by pushing the up and down arrows. So none of it is active in terms of being able to click on anything. You're going to scroll through the presentation slides. And so we start with the profile, which is a very basic look at who the child is, what they're currently working on in their personal capacity, where they live, things like that. We put their daily timetable. Instead of following a weekly sort of rigid timetable, we have a daily rhythm, which the children follow, which directs them to the correct part of their Google Classroom to work on next. This daily timetable, I'd like to remind you, is flexible. So we will give your child a generic timetable like this one, and the only parts that are fixed are the parts in orange. So the Pod Connect and the check-in are fixed. That's because they're meeting every day with their Pod Connect to do the social emotional development and with check-in to do their academic checkup with their teacher. The rest of the day is flexible. So we had a child the other day say, I wake up at 6 in the morning. Can I start maths at 7? We say, yep, you can. I wouldn't be that person, but you can be. Other people say, no, my brain doesn't switch on until 9:30. Can I do maths at 10? I'd like to do English in the afternoon. This is a very flexible timetable. We can even adjust it for a particular day. So if you were to say as a family, on Wednesday afternoons, we have this thing that we do together, or my child's involved in, nippers, lifeguard training, then we can adjust their daily timetable just for that particular day. It also means we can adjust it for their particular needs. So if they need a little bit longer in maths and a little bit shorter in English, we can do that for their timetable without changing anybody else's timetable. So one of the things that I'd like for you to do as parents in the coming weeks, stay in touch with your child and your teacher about their timetable. This is one of the things that we want to teach the children. Routines and daily habits like this are healthy without needing to be restrictive. So we want to get into healthy habits of working through routines like this. But actually, if life brings us something that we need to be flexible around, we need to be flexible around it. And so really work on this daily rhythm, this daily timetable with your child, and communicate to your teacher if you'd like to make any adjustments, to see if you'd like to make any changes which might lean into how your child works best. And once you've found their sweet spot and their daily timetable is working nicely for them, what you'll find is that it's not hard for them to follow their daily rhythms. What's hard is to follow a daily rhythm that doesn't make sense to you, that doesn't fit your personality or your character or your styles or your strengths. And so once you've found what works for your child, lean into that. Let's get it onto their daily timetable and let's go with that. So communicate that with your teacher. Just a couple of notes here as well. Firstly, we've said here already that all of their work is loaded through Google Classroom. All of their live events are accessed through Google Calendar. So they will all be calendared for them and all of the links will be live on that Google Calendar. That includes things like Pod Connect, check-in, teacher time. We do COA clubs every Thursday. They can get involved in cooking club or book club, or we've got some wonderful clubs that run on Thursday mornings. We've got social events that happen. We've got chess club that happens in the afternoons. And so any event that's happening online, they access through their Google Calendar. And then teacher time. This is where they can book support, academic support, as well as IT support if they need support in any of those areas. The teacher will often recommend that they book this. The teacher will often during check-in say, why don't you go and book teacher time for your geography? Why don't you go and book teacher time for your maths? And let's get that focused on. The next slide is one of the most crucial slides for you as a parent. And I would encourage you as a parent to check this slide at least every second day. I would love if you check this every day, but at least every second day, pop onto this slide and just have a look to see how their academic progress is going. Let me explain to you how this works. Because every child is working asynchronously and independently, what we do is we work in 2-week target sprints. So every 2 weeks on a Monday morning, the teacher will meet with your child and one-on-one together will set academic targets for the next 2 weeks. And we'll say, right, for the next 2 weeks, how far do you think we should progress in maths, in English, in reading, in all of these key subject areas? And together, your child and their teacher will set targets in each of those subject areas. What we love about that is that it's teaching your child the skills of being able to set goals that are both stretching and attainable. So every child's targets will be slightly different to everybody else in the pod. And it's all progression and not achievement. So we're not saying, let's get 80% of everything right in maths. We're saying, let's progress 5% through your maths course. Remember, you have to master everything as you go. So we're saying, how far through your course do you want to get? Now, the teacher's job is twofold. Firstly, to get to know the child well enough to know which subjects they can progress further in. And secondly, to help the child move at least at the minimum pace to get them through the year's worth of work in a year. What we find is that given the opportunity to work at their own pace, typically we work faster than the minimum required, as long as we're working consistently and effectively. But the teacher will be keeping an eye on the long-term goals while helping the child to set short-term goals of 2 weeks at a time. And then every day, the teacher will update your child's dashboard. So once a day at a specific time in the day, this graph will change and will be updated for the new day and will reflect their up-to-date progress in each of the subject areas. So you'll be able to see every day how far they've progressed in maths, English, comprehension, and so on. And that blue bar at the top is growing incrementally each day, showing you if you want to reach your targets by the end of the 2-week target sprint, you have to stay in line with me. So we can see here on Beth's dashboard, she's ahead of all of her targets and she's actually finished her English. She's already reached her target for English, but she's fallen behind a bit in her Afrikaans course. So the teacher might pick this up the next day and say, hey, Beth, I see you've fallen behind in your Afrikaans. What's happening there? Do you need support? Are you struggling with something? Beth might say, no, actually, yesterday I didn't do Afrikaans because we had a power cut. And so I focused on English extra hard and did more in that. The teacher might say, great, you've gone so far in your English. Let's not do any English today. Let's double down on your Afrikaans and let's really get ahead of that. Let's get that back in line with the blue bar. And so the teacher will be coaching them through the progression on this slide. You'll notice that the reaching your target is not the end of the graph. Reaching your target is that middle line. It's the middle star. We want to give them the opportunity to go past their target, to excel, to exceed, and get the gold star for, well done, you've gone even further than you thought that you should aim for. Down at the bottom here, we've got a graph which is going to grow over time, and this will show you how many targets they've reached in the last 4 target sprints. So as the target sprints go on, it looks at the 4 most recent target sprints and tells you how many of all of their targets have they reached and turns it into a percentage for you. What's important to remember about this is that because targets are set for every child individually, we should be reaching all of our targets. Now, we're not going to say 100% of our targets because we know that things happen and sometimes I go well past my target and the next week I fall just short of my target. And so we're saying that we should be reaching our targets at least 75% of the time. If that number drops below 75%, then there is the concern that they're not working fast enough, reaching their targets regularly enough that they're going to get through the year's work in a year. So when we see that graph dipping below 75, we'll probably get in touch and set up a meeting just to chat through what sort of support does your child need. If they're not reaching 75% of their targets, that seems to indicate to me that they're probably not sticking to their daily timetables. They may not be putting the hours into maths they need to be putting into maths. And this is where those relationship triangles come in and we start talking about, are you able to check in with your child a little bit more consistently on, are they actually doing their work while they're in their room. Because remember, because we're asynchronous and independent from each other, the teacher is not always with your child live, going, back to your work, please, back to your work, please. We find that the motivation and the self regulation is a lot higher in this sort of style of children reaching their own targets. They're incentivized to reach their own targets, and it's on their terms. And so we find that children are a lot more self-motivated and driven naturally, but we do have times where we have to sit down both with the teacher and the parent and the child and say, we're seeing a disconnect here. You're not reaching your targets regularly enough. What sort of support do you need to reach those targets? Just so that you know, we're able on all of the platforms to pull up really interesting stats, and we'll be sharing this with the kids. We're able to look and see over the last 4 weeks in maths, how many minutes have you spent on the maths platform? How many times have you attempted the different quizzes? And so we're really able to pull meaningful data out of their work so that we can say to the child, look, your timetable is saying 45 minutes of maths a day, but it seems like you're spending 20 minutes of maths a day. Do we need to adjust your timetable? Do we need to change your work conditions? How do we get you back up to reaching your targets? This slide gives you an overview of all of the key tasks for the term. These are things that your child will be submitting as they work, and they're drip fed to the child in all of their platforms. So as they're working through their work, we're getting marks coming off of their work. And if they're working at a consistent rate, you'll see these things lighting up green as they work through the term. And it just gives you an overview of these are all the things which are going to count for marks towards my child's report at the end of the year. And so this just gives you an idea of they're submitting their work, they're getting those assignments in. A lot of those are happening naturally. We really want to avoid the need for the child to do things like take a photograph and upload it and email it to the teacher and it gets lost in spam, or the teacher takes too long to mark it, and then the replies to the child, but the child never reads the email. And we want to avoid that disconnect. So a lot of what happens with this happens either automatically. So while the child is working on their platform, whatever activity or assignment they're working on gets automatically marked. They get the feedback straight away. They see the mark that they got, and that mark gets automatically sent to the child's dashboard. Or it's something that happens in what we call a showcase. And this is something that you might hear from your teacher in the future. A showcase is when the child knows this is something that I have to show to my teacher during one of my check-ins. So the teacher will say to them, hey, Beth, I see that you're busy here working on outer space neighborhood. That's a showcase activity. Will you be ready to showcase that to me on Thursday? Beth says, I've just started. The teacher says, okay, how about Friday? Let's showcase this on Friday. Beth says, yep. Teacher makes a note. And then that Friday, the teacher will meet with them and check in. Beth will then showcase the work to the teacher. The teacher will mark it live with the child, will give immediate feedback to the child on their work, and have a conversation with the child. One of the mechanisms that we use is I like, I wonder. Hey, Beth, I really like how you brought out the elements of whatever it is in your demonstration. I wonder if you could have paid more attention to this. Okay, great. Here's your rubric. Here's your mark. Do you have any questions? Do you have any thoughts? And then we mark it off on the graph as green. Okay. We also incentivize them in other ways using badges. I love this slide. I think this is probably one of the most underutilized slides at Koha Academy. We choose 10 sort of areas of interest each term, and these change every term. It's a mixture of academic and socio-emotional and cultural, and what we try and do is encourage kids to try new and different things and reach goals, reach personal goals. You'll find that none of these are achievement oriented. So they're not get 90%. It's reach my gold star in maths. And so that's based on the targets that my teacher has set for me. And what that avoids is typically what we've done is, as teachers and parents, we fall into the trap of incentivizing based on everybody should get this level. Everybody should get 80% for maths. And if you don't get 80% for maths, then sorry, you don't get the reward, the award or the star or whatever it is. When actually 80% for one child might be very bad, while 80% for another child is actually very good for maths. And so what we're wanting to do is incentivize based on each child's performance. And that's what this slide is doing. So I really encourage you as parents, incentivize this. Tell your kids, if you get 10 out of 10 badges this term, then I don't know, what are we doing? Then we're going ziplining in Orabi Gorge. Okay, something fun. So incentivize this, and what you'll find is that your kids are powerfully motivated. And behind this is things like they have to reach their targets in their different subjects, as well as fun things like go and bake something and share a picture with your pod. In terms of academic progress, as Jason said at the beginning of this, we really do have our eye on the ball in terms of making sure that we're providing a high quality and robust academic program for your child, which sets them up for maximum success in grade 10 to 12 and ultimately their grade 12 matric exams. And so what this graph is doing, this is the slowest growing graph over time. And initially, you will only see one row of dots form, and that'll be per term. So this graph here along the bottom is for a child who started in grade 4 and is going to end in grade 6. It shows a phase. So it'll either show grade 4 to 6, or it'll show grade 7 to 9. And what you're seeing is their academic performance over time for each subject area. Rather than showing it to you as a percentage, it's showing it to you as mastery points. And if you want to be quote unquote passing the subject, you need to be at least in the green or above. And so you can think of the bottom green, the bottom line of the green section as 50%, and you can think of the top of the green as 80%. If you want to sort of think of it in a traditional sense. But what we're looking for is for each subject to grow over time in terms of our mastering the subject. And so that we're exiting grade 6 over here, and for the grade 7, 8, 9s, we're exiting grade 9 having mastered those particular subjects. And this gives a child the sense that I'm falling behind in a subject or I'm growing in a subject over time. The other thing that you can see from this graph, which is really valuable for us at COA, is that it's possible for you to be working ahead in some subjects or behind in some subjects. Now, typically, we don't want that to happen too spread out across your subjects. We don't want to get too far ahead in some subjects or too far behind in some subjects, specifically because of grade 9. And for some of us, that's a long way off. Some of us, it's a little bit closer. At the end of grade 9, your child writes grade 9 exams at the end of grade 9 and has to pass grade 9 wholesale in order to start their FET, which is grade 10, 11, and 12. So in order for them to start their grade 10 program, which is when subject choices happen, so that's the first time they say, I'd like to do business studies, while another child says, I'd like to do life sciences. They have to pass grade 9. We submit their marks to the IEB. The IEB says, yes, that child's ready to go into grade 10. And that's how we enroll them in grade 10. So because of that, we kind of want to spearhead everything towards that end of grade 9 point. What we are able to do, particularly for maths, I love letting maths go as fast as it wants to go, because you really shouldn't hold maths back. So let's grow that maths. And if we need to do, extra enrichment or extension work when they reach grade 8 and 9, that's wonderful. I'm even happy for them to start auditing some grade 10 classes while they're in grade 9 to get them ready for grade 10. But what we're seeing here is the ability to work across subjects. If a child fails a year, we're able to say, let's say they fail the grade 8 year, rather than repeating grade 8 wholesale, we're able to say, well, let's progress that child to grade 9 pod, and they can start working on all of their grade 9 academic platforms, and let's loop them back in the subject that they failed. Let's say it's maths. Let's loop them back in maths and put them back into their grade 8 maths course. And they'll then need to do their grade 8 maths course as well as their grade 9 maths course and catch back up to their age grade. So there's quite a lot of flexibility around that. The last thing that we're doing here on the dashboard, and this is also very slow over time, is that we are building a CV. So we know that it is more and more true that your child is not just going to get placed in university based on marks. They have to get good marks. But that's now the foundational point. That's not the pinnacle. That's the foundational point. That's the starting point, is good marks. After that, the university is going to look at what type of child is this? Who are they? What are they interested in? What type of character do they have? And so being able to submit your university application with a CV is a powerful thing. And so right from grade 4, we're teaching a child to build their CV and build confidence in these areas. I'm equipping myself by doing courses and work experience that are outside of my typical school academic curriculum. And so we're helping them to populate this as we go. Okay. Let's jump back here, shall we? We're almost finished. Quick thoughts. Did I miss anything? No. Quick thoughts. Okay. Let me shoot through a last few things here, and then I'll take some questions. Some quick thoughts for you as we wrap up. Firstly, your physical setup at your home. This is something that, because schools have always taken responsibility for your child's physical environment, we don't think a lot about it. There was a really interesting article released by Primer, which is an organization in the States who are focusing on equipping homeschooling families. And they released a really interesting article that was all about what is the number one thing that, if your child is going to work from home, what is the number one thing they need to succeed academically, not to succeed socio-emotionally? What's the number one thing that they need to succeed academically? And the answer was a safe environment. A safe environment. Your child needs a safe environment at home. And that includes an emotionally safe environment, a mentally safe environment, and a physically safe environment. And by physically safe, I don't mean, the roof's not going to fall down on them. I mean things like, give some thought to what sort of colors are in the room. Give some thought to the desk that they're going to be sitting at. Give some thought to the lighting. Is there a window right behind them? Is there a window behind them? What sort of lighting are they going to have on their face while they're on camera? The computer that I'm giving them, is the screen going to be big enough that they're not focusing on tiny things? Do we need to get a monitor for them to work on? Think through what sort of snacks they're going to have during the day. Providing them with a physical setup that makes them feel safe, feel comfortable, feel excited is the best thing you can do as a family to set your child up for success in the online space. That's really your number one role. And so really pay some attention to that. I've just mentioned here HF Design. I'll be sharing a weekly newsletter with you on Fridays called From the COA Desk. So keep an eye out on your email. And From the COA Desk this week is going to have a link for you to a company called HF Design. This is a really exciting company that's based in Joburg. And I met them at a homeschool expo recently. And their job is to design desks and chairs for children who are working at home. And I love their desks and chairs. I love their furniture. It's all adjustable and super stylish. And the husband is the craftsman and the wife is an architect, and the two of them have teamed up to sort of start this new venture. So, and if you go through them, we've got a discount rate with them. I can't remember. I think it's like 15% off if you order with our COA Academy link. So go ahead and click on that link and make sure you use the promo code, and they'll ship it to you. It's really reasonably priced as well. But more information in the COA Desk. There's also communication channels to be aware of here. So I've already said reach out to us on email. You're also welcome to give us a call on our COA phone. The phone number is in all of our email signatures. You can call that number. You'll probably be put through to Tegan, who is our administrator, and Tegan will direct you to the right person. Whether you're trying to get a hold of me or one of the teachers, Tegan will patch you through. Please do reach out to us though. In terms of response time, please give your teachers 24 hours to respond to any queries. Your teachers are probably bouncing between check-ins and they're updating of the dashboards, and they're quite busy during the morning. And so we've asked our teachers to get back to you within 24 hours if you do drop them an email. And if you give them a call, Tegan might schedule a call back for you with your teacher, and then your teacher will give you a call back. Other thing to say about communication channels is please whitelist COA Academy. So in your email, whatever email service provider you use, whether it's Gmail or Outlook, however your service provider does it, please will you figure out how to whitelist COA Academy. I'll also include a helpful how-to on that in the COA Desk. But whitelist our email address. And the reason for that is because sometimes you'll receive an email directly from one of us, and sometimes you'll receive an email from our mass emailer. So a system that sends emails en masse to all of our parents with helpful information or upcoming events. And those sometimes land up in promotion or spam folders. If you can drag it across to your primary inbox and make sure that those are always pinging in your primary inbox. In terms of languages, this is worth mentioning just for those of us who in the call who are not doing Afrikaans as first additional language. This is very important. If you are not doing Afrikaans as your first additional language, just to remind you that your child does need to be doing a South African language as their first additional language. So whether they're doing isiZulu or isiXhosa or any one of the South African recognized languages, that's absolutely great. We are really, really desperate to build out more first additional languages at COA. I think when we have our leadership team meetings, this is something that just we're talking about all the time and investigating partnerships with organizations that are doing things in Zulu, doing things in other South African languages. And we're looking to expand that as fast and as soon as possible, but we're not there yet. So in the meantime, if you have decided not to do Afrikaans as your first additional language, that means that you need to be outsourcing the teaching, the learning, and the reporting for that language. So that means you need to have a private tutor or a private institution or a family member who is comfortable to teach that language first additional language. What we will do as COA Academy to support you in that, because we're really passionate about supporting you in your choice and being as flexible as possible, what we will do to support you, we will send through CAPS documents, which are your curriculum documents, which break down what curriculum your child will need to work through for the year. We will send through resources that we have, which will give them sort of worksheets or instructional, textbook style information. And we'll also help with assessments. So we will send through termly assessments for your child to do, and we will source a teacher to mark those assessments. Those are the things that we'll do for you. If you can please take care of the actual teaching and learning for your subject there. And we'll keep you posted as soon as we build in other South African languages. Okay, then in terms of term dates and holidays, just a reminder, this is another area that we like to do with options as a family. And so we are going to follow set term dates in terms of our suggested term dates. If you open up your parent information booklet, you'll see there that there are suggested term dates for you to follow. And if you don't have any other preference, we encourage you to follow those because it means your child will have the most contact with other kids during the term. But if you would like to move your term dates, that's also absolutely fine. COA Academy and the teachers are available for typically more than the term dates. And so you're able to move around your term dates a little bit. Have a look at the parent information booklet, and you'll see the dates where your teachers are available outside of our suggested term dates for you to shift your dates a little bit. I do want to ask you, if you are going to do that in the first 2 terms, please won't you let us know as soon as possible so that we can plan accordingly, because our teachers are hard at work in those days where it's not our suggested term, and we need to shift our timetables around to accommodate anybody who's moving their timetables. And then a last reminder on that, if you would even like to work when we are closed, you can. You have the flexibility and the freedom, and you have access to your child's platforms to be able to carry on with their work even when we're not working, and they will count towards your child's academic year. What we won't be able to do is do the daily updates of their dashboard, as well as the daily teacher time or Pod Connect. So your child will just be doing their academic work on their platforms. We'll preload that for them and set them up for success. And then when we get back, we'll have a look at how they've progressed and update their dashboards at that point. A few emails along the bottom there, just directing you who to contact. If it's IT related, Debbie is reachable on it@coaacademy.com. If it's anything to do with pods or teaching or platforms, contact your teacher at their name @coaacademy.com. If it's something related to school-wide or something related to a sort of an issue that you'd like to discuss with me as the principal, you can reach me on mark@coaacademy.com. I'd also love to have your suggestions and thoughts. We are blessed to be in a position where we are quite light on our feet and adaptive. And what we really want to know is that what we're offering makes sense to families. So if you have thoughts about how COA Academy works, get in touch with me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And then lastly, if it's anything business or fees related, then you can reach Lauren @coaacademy.com. And that is it for the presentation. And I am already 2 minutes over my promised time, but I do want to create a space for questions and answers. I'm first going to say thank you so much for joining us. I've really appreciated you coming in. It's good to see so many faces. We're so excited for what this year has to offer. We've got more news coming in that from the COA desk each Friday, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to have those in-person socials, so get excited for that. And there'll be more opportunities for you to see each other on screen and connect with people in your area as well. We'd love to start connecting families together. And my last encouragement is every chance you get to engage somebody else in COA Academy who's in your area, do it. Pursue those connections, pursue those relationships. They're really meaningful for your child. We want to grow your opportunities outside of COA Academy as your child plugs into opportunities in this unbundled world of education. But we also want to see these natural hubs forming where your child is connecting with other COA Academy kids in your area. We love work dates. Do work dates. Figure out who's in your area and let your child go over to their house and do a work date where, hey, I'll work from your house this morning, you work from my house tomorrow. We meet up at a neutral venue. You get to know parents that way. Kids get to know each other that way. It's a wonderful opportunity to start building connections. Even if they're in a different grade or a different pod, they can still work together independently on their platforms. Okay. I am going to answer some questions, but anybody who wants to head out, you're welcome to head out. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And now I'm going to start answering questions. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Okay. All right, there's a first question here. I'm just going to go in order here. Tamara, you asked, how does it happen if we're doing our first year at COA in grade 9 if there's no history in the progress chart? Correct. So in that long-term progress chart, there won't be anything, and the first dots will pop in grade 9 term 1, and so their graph will grow from grade 9 term 1 to grade 9 term 4. So you'll just see that stretch of the graph and then their exit point. Okay. Next question. What's the best software to install to protect children from inappropriate, unwanted content on the web? Francois, this is such a good question. I'm going to direct, maybe it'd be helpful for me to add a link from the COA desk this week. At the end of last year, we teamed up with a couple of organizations to actually do a webinar on this topic. And this is something that we'll engage with you as parents on regularly, is keeping your child safe in the physical space online. So just to throw a few things out there, firstly, I'm going to share the link to that webinar. It's a webinar that we held in conjunction with Dingley Marshall law firm, Arinda Truter, who specializes in social media and the law and what it means to be safe in the online space, as well as Rochelle Best from FYI Play It Safe, which is a parent control app. It's not a parent control app, it's a supervision app, which her company has launched. And COA Academy parents actually get a discount with FYI Play It Safe as well. At the moment, I think that's only Android-based, but they're looking at building it out for Windows and Mac as well. But there's a lot of information in that webinar, ideas around how to keep your child safe. I know that there are other COA Academy parents in the call who have some fantastic ideas about things like, firewalls on your router or software that you can install on your computer to keep your child safe. I would say, overarching all of that is the idea that your number one tool in keeping your child safe in the online space is your engagement with them and open lines of communication with them. Your relationship with them on this is going to be your most powerful weapon, because there is no one parental control that will block all unwanted things. There isn't one. It doesn't exist. Your child, whether they go to a physical school or an online school or they're homeschooled, your child will be exposed to unwanted content at some point in some form. And our job as parents, I believe strongly, is twofold. Firstly, it's to steer them as far away from that as possible. We want to put them in a space that as safe as possible. We don't go, oh, well, there's no helping it, let's throw them to the wolves. So we want to create safe spaces. So as a school, we are using ecosystems and systems which are as safe and as protected as possible. We even have a company, a third-party company that audits us every month to make sure that our IT systems are as safe as they can be for children to use. And then from your side, as parents, engage with each other. After I've sent out that link, you can engage with me. I like to find out what the specific needs of the family are. What are the specific areas of concern that we can put some practical tools in place? And overarching all of that is your relationship with your child, where you've got open communication with him and you're talking about these issues. Last thing on this to mention is, I didn't mention this in the physical setup space, and I meant to, is please think carefully about where your child is working in the house. Because what we want to do is we want to create accountability for them in their physical space. If you have a quote unquote fairly public space in your house, as in the dining room, just off the dining room, in a nook somewhere that they can be set up with their workstation, that's a great option. If their bedroom is the best option in your house, that's fine. They can work in their bedroom, but please encourage them to keep the door open. That is highly accountable for us as Co-Academy to see that there is access to their room. And secondly, to you as the parents or whoever the caregiver is at home who's with them, can just walk past the room and always has access to see what's happening in their classroom while they're working. But I'd love to engage you more on that if you have specific needs. I see Justin's replied. For those of you who haven't met Justin, Justin is a great contact for this. So is Gareth, Frau. I hope you guys don't mind me just throwing your names out. It's a bit rude. Kind of feel like I know you well enough that I can. But there are parents who are very thoughtful about this and actually very well equipped to give advice. Okay. Yeah, there's Gareth with some Microsoft advice. Thanks, Gareth. Okay, Cindy, great question. Thanks. Registering with the Department of Education. So if you don't have access to that parent information booklet, is its name, go and search your emails for parent information booklets. If you can't find the parent information booklet, please email me and I will resend it to you. We also have it on the web. So if you look on our website, you should be able to find it there. It might not be super obvious where it is on our website, but we have emailed it to you and I'll try and make it more obvious on our website. That parent information booklet has a lot of information about the Department of Education. It explains our relationship with the Department of Education and explains the registration process for you as the parents. From grade 4 to 9, we don't register your child with the Department of Education. You send in the registration as the parents for the Department of Education. And if you have any queries or need support, we can support you. So we are in communication with the Department of Education and with representatives for homeschooling in the different provinces. And we're very happy to have conversations on your behalf or to give you advice or documentation that they're requesting of you. And just a reminder here, in terms of responsibility, this is something that falls under your responsibility as a homeschool parent. And after we provide you with all of the information that you need in terms of registration with the Department of Education, it's then up to you to send in that registration. If you'd like more information on that, I'd be happy to chat through it with you personally. Okay, Robin, a link for the recording of the presentation. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to post this meeting link, this recording. I'll put a link to it from the COA desk on Friday. So you'll get the meeting link. In fact, I'll send it out before then. I'll send it out tomorrow because there'll be parents who want to see it before Friday. So I'll send a special email just with this meeting link, and I'll also put a link to the slides that we worked through. Bruce, the manufacturer is HF Design. HF Design. And when you Google HF Design, just beware the very first one that pops up looks like the right one, but I think it's a flooring company in America. It's not that HF Design. It's the HF Design in Joburg. Thanks, Grace. We're also so excited for this journey. I think it's going to be fun, exciting. With regards to Enrich, how much variety do you recommend? Good question. Example, 1 interest pursued daily, 3 interests on rotation. This is such a good question. The answer is this depends largely on your child. And one of the things you might find is consistency is good for them. One of the things you might find is trying 3 or 4 things very quickly makes something ping. So what I'd recommend you do is keep an open hand when it comes to their enrichment, and let's try a few different things. And this is something, again, that you can reach out to your teacher and say, I don't feel like that's working. Can we try something different? And when we get an email like that, we can literally change the plan the next day with enrichment and go, right, we were doing 3 different enrichment options, every alternate day, but actually let's just settle into one for the next 2 weeks. And so we can really be flexible around that and around your interests. One of the things I like to do is, just as a general rule, now that I've said that super individualized and flexible, now I'm going to give you my general rule. My general advice is always have an enrichment option on there, which is long-term and not necessarily just fun. So I normally look to put them onto an enrichment platform that's going to benefit them in something like their typing speed, which sounds terribly boring to the child. But actually, if you triple your typing speed in the online space, you're tripling your productivity when you're doing something like typing an essay. So I put them onto something like that as a long-term option. And then a second option, which is a little bit more fun and lighthearted and maybe like a 2-week passion project, where it's something like, let's learn how to draw cartoon characters for 2 weeks. And we try that for a while, and then we try something else for a while. Okay, good question about the isiZulu. If you choose isiZulu, do you have to notify the Department of Education? Not separately to your application to homeschool. And just to say, to try and make this as clear as possible, once you've sent in your application, so you're going to send an email to the Department of Education saying, I'd like to homeschool my child. Here's all the documentation you've requested. And by the way, we provide you with a lot of that documentation. You're going to send in like a child's ID and like a short motivational letter. Your motivational letter can be very short, by the way. We send you with all the academic documentation and things like that. Once you've sent that email, you don't have to wait for their response. You don't have to follow up with them, and you don't have to notify them of changes. Once you've sent that email in, it's now on their desk, and it's their responsibility to follow up with you. They have a crazy backlog at the moment. I mean, you can imagine. Homeschooling in South Africa, because all online schools fall under the umbrella of homeschooling, you can imagine that these departments which were handling a certain amount of traffic have just exploded. And so we're hearing stories of parents submitting their documentation and not hearing for more than a year from the department. You don't have to wait to hear from them. You don't feel like you need to phone them to follow up. They'll get in touch with you when you're next in the queue. And if they have any questions about the academic program, they'll ask. I would just say, when you submit that, one of the documents references Afrikaans. You can just cross that out and put isiZulu and send it in as it is. Okay. Okay, another question about registration department. I hope I've handled that okay, the registration question. If you're still unsure, please give me a call and I'll get that information booklet to you, which spells it out in great. It's got all of the email addresses and documents listed there for you. So if you are struggling with that, I'd love to pass that on to you. Tamara, how can you find out about families in our areas? Great question. Okay, there are a couple of ways that we can do this. The first way is we'll have some in-person socials, particularly in the major centers. But secondly, we're going to host events. We're going to host online events where we'll cluster you together. And so you'll start to get to meet other people who are in your area. Occasionally, we do a parent social, which is literally just the parents getting together for an event online. Sometimes we do a family social where we get the kids involved. We do fun things like last year we had Sarah Graham, who's the chef and author of Bitten. She came and did a cooking session with us online. We host game show events and things like that. So keep an eye out for those. That's a nice way to connect with each other. And we'll do some more intentionally clustered events this year so that you can meet people in your area. And then the other thing to know about that is that your child's pod has been designed as much as possible with geographic location in mind. So some age groups are seriously spread out across the country. And even when kids are in the same city, they're like on opposite sides of the city. So it's quite difficult. But where we can, we cluster together geographic areas. So you might find that in your child's pod of 8, 4 of you live in the Pretoria area and connect with each other quite easily. And your child will just get to know quite quickly where everybody lives in their pod, and ask them questions. Ask them, hey, who's in your pod? Tell me about the people who are there. Where do they live? And you can start to figure it out and get in touch with them like that. Thanks, Gareth. Gareth has got the South African HF design for you there. Okay, as a starting point for new students, as they find their feet, is there a suggested minimum number of hours to schedule per day? Yes. So the first thing that we'll do in orientation is we'll walk your child through their dashboard and we'll introduce them to their timetable. And their timetable has a breakdown of our recommended generic daily rhythm. And you'll see there that it typically starts at 8 and ends at around lunchtime. So we're basically working for the morning. What you'll find is that if your child is a fast worker, they're able to reach their targets in fewer hours, and then we'll adjust their timetable at that point. But we do start with a fairly standard timetable that's typically around 4 to 4.5 hours of work per day, depending on the age of your child. Okay. Any other questions before we head out? Homework, great question. Tamara, my answer is, what is homework? So all of our work just falls into the day. This is one of the wonderful things about online schooling, or as we see it, homeschooling, is our structures are so different that it's not like you learn content at school and then come home and practice content at home. We just do our work. When it says maths, we do all our maths and then we're finished. So there's no distinction between now I'm doing schoolwork and now I'm doing homework. It's just we're doing work. So there's no term homework at COA. What you might find is that if a child's well behind on their targets, they might need to do extra work. It's not homework, it's just more hours in the day to catch up to their targets. So you might need to say to your child, I see that you're well behind on your maths. You need to do some maths this afternoon to catch up on your maths target. It won't be prescribed homework. Exams. Okay, good question. So all of our assessments for grade 4 to 9 are built into their platforms, built into their courses. It's all ongoing assessment. It's happening throughout the year. So all of the quote unquote tests, we still do studied for activities, but they're not in test sessions and they're not in exam weeks, which are just anxiety provoking. They're built into the platforms, built into the courses, still working at your own pace, spread out across the year. We're pulling all of those tests and assessment marks out. And then when we get to the end of each grade, we have progression tests at the end of each grade. Those progression tests all happen in term 4 and they're spread across term 4. So they're not happening in an intense test week. We have a build up to a geography test and write a geography test and so on. The exception is grade 9, where we probably will run some sort of formal test session, both in June and then in November, just to give them a taste of formal assessment periods to get them ready for grade 10, where the assessment schedules really kick in and we start following much more rigorous assessment schedules for grade 10, 11, and then ultimately grade 12. Okay. What about projects, activities, science projects that are normally done in labs in normal schools? This is a very good question as well. I really like that question. So there are a couple of elements to this. The first element of this is, what about skills and practical skills that your child needs to know for grade 10 and 11 and 12 to write their practical exams? We build those in the later years, and your child will actually start attending in grade 11 in particular, will start attending a local center nearby you where they can practice some of those more technical skills for particularly the sciences. But when it comes to projects and sort of getting hands-on experience, we build a lot of those into the engaged tasks, and then your kids are accessing resources around them to do those tasks. We're not super prescriptive on the resources that they need. We might say something to them like, the cell can be modeled like a city, where you can demonstrate the human cell as a model of a city. We want you to build a model of a city. And some kids will go and get clay, or some kids will get a cardboard box, or some kids will do it in Minecraft and they'll do it digitally. Or we really want to give kids as many options as we can when it comes to what we understand of as traditional projects. We want it to be hands-on, we want it to be practical, we want it to be real-world relevant, but we do want to give them options. And so some of those options are real life options. Do the kids only have live interaction with the teachers on check-ins? No. So the live interaction with teachers happens in a few ways. Firstly, they'll interact with the teachers every morning during Pod Connect. That's half an hour every morning with their pod. The second time is check-ins, which is half an hour in an even smaller group. That's a group of 4 where they're looking at an academic area of interest. They could book teacher time, which is half an hour of one-on-one academic support. They can't book that every day, but they can book it fairly frequently. And just to say, I'm sad that a few people have dropped off, because I was going to tell you about the subject specialists. For the older grades, the grade 7, 8, 9s, we have subject specialists coming in. And so you can actually book maths teacher time with a maths subject specialist who's actually also teaching the grade 10, 11s, and 12s, who'll come into grade 7, 8, 9 and do the maths teacher time academic support for those grades as well. And then they also have contact time when we do weekly assemblies, we do the socials, we do an event called The Doctor Will Explain You Now, which is where they get to meet online with a PhD graduate, and the PhD graduate explains their doctoral thesis to the kids in 10 minutes to a 10-year-old. That's their task. And so we've had quantum physicists and zoologists who specialized in bat ecology. They come in and they explain their thesis to the kids and engage with the kids like that as well. So there are other forms of sort of contact time for the kids with teachers and real world experts. Okay. The next question is, how about school books? Okay, great question. We favor material which was designed specifically for the online space. So a textbook was designed to be a physical book. And so we don't favor textbooks as far as possible. In the younger grades, particularly grade 4 and 5, we don't use any textbooks. We don't find them intuitive in the online space. All of that material is wonderfully available in the online space. And so we tap into resources and platforms which were designed to be online. And if it's a paid for platform, we do access paid for platforms. We will cover the cost of those platforms and place your child onto those platforms. As your child gets a bit older, some of the material is still best available in a textbook. We purchase digital textbooks, load them onto a digital bookshelf, and your child can then go into their digital bookshelf and access any of their virtual textbooks. And so we purchase those and load them onto their platform. Same is true for things like English literature books. We will give them digital copies of that. And if you come across, let's say they're working on a English literature book or a science textbook and would like a hard copy, a lot of them are available in hard copy, and you can opt to go and purchase one of those, but we will always provide the information for your child virtually. Okay. Oh, the one thing I'd say about that is we love reading. So if you can get a novel, I don't know if your child is into Kindle, if they're on a Kindle, that's great. They're welcome to use a Kindle, but we're going to do a lot of reading across grade 4 to 9. So if your child is interested in a particular set of novels, go and get a bunch of them. We do love physical books. Get a bunch of them, stack them up in their room, and we're going to read through those this year. Yes, Olivia, great question. Are they interacting with each other for fun? Yes, every day. Pod Connect is so fun. We have so much fun during that Pod Connect time. And so what you'll find is that your child is really connecting healthily and having fun in the online space. I was teaching pods last year as well. And I used to love my Pod Connect times because they're a real blast, and you really get to know the kids' personalities and characters, and they get to know each other quite well. And it's a really engaging time. It's one of the things that we've really intentionally tried to do in the online space. Okay, great question tomorrow about bullying and discipline. This is actually something that a lot of parents who've ended up either online schooling or homeschooling, a lot of them have done so because of concerns about bullying. It's a very real concern. And I think the first thing that I'd say is there is no school on the planet that doesn't have bullying. Physical schools, online schools, home schools, bullying happens. You think about your workplace, bullying happens. Think about your, all walks of life. There will be dynamics which resemble bullying. And so what we want to do is, firstly, we want to create highly accountable spaces. And what we found with Koa Academy is the way that we've set up the pods. I'm not going to say eliminate bullying because that's not possible, but I'm going to say it creates such a highly accountable space. Kids feel safe very quickly. Kids feel safe very quickly, and they're held accountable much more easily. And so I'm able as a pod teacher, if I've only got 8 kids in my pod and they're all on the screen at the same time and all unmuted and we're all getting to know each other, there's not a lot of opportunity for bullying until it happens in the unseen. So now when we go offline from the pod and we're connecting with each other virtually on social media chats or in group chats, there is opportunity for bullying there. And what our job as a school is to equip our kids to deal with that and to handle that and to follow up on situations. And we take it very seriously when there are situations of bullying. And we also encourage our kids to be empowered to handle those situations. So we teach them how to navigate those moments in the online safe that empowers them. And we also have a wonderful organization who are working with us, who are going to be doing a lot of our cyberbullying sort of coaching of our kids this year. We're really excited about that. Keep an eye out from the COA desk. We'll have more information about that partnership. We're just getting that set up and ready to launch for the term. Okay. Thanks, Justin. It's good to have you back. Okay, does this mean that they have pre-recorded lectures online in between? So this is something that probably, as you wrap your head around how COA works differently, this is something that you're going to realize is not school on a screen. So our teachers are not lecturing to a webcam. So there is no maths lecture that's happening over a webcam that the children are all logging in and listening to. When we reach grade 10, 11, and 12, if you come back tomorrow because you've got a child in grade 10, this presentation is going to be different, because grade 10, 11, and 12, we have live lectures with subject specialists. So we have a science teacher lecturing science. We have a maths teacher lecturing maths, and that's complemented by what's happening in the online space in terms of asynchronous working through platforms. But with our 4s to 9s, our teachers are not lecturing content live. Your children are accessing platforms which are handling all of the content delivery, handling all of the assessment built in. So let me give you an example. Some of us are familiar with Khan Academy. We love Khan Academy for maths. We think it's wonderful. We see fantastic developments very quickly in that space. And it's got 2 to 5 minute videos, short videos by one of the world's best maths teachers, a guy named Sal Khan. He breaks things down into 2 to 5 minute videos, immediately followed by 4 to 7 questions based on that content. And depending on the child's performance in that little mini quiz of 7, it might loop them back to rewatch the video or read some information on that. And then it'll present them with the next video and the next little mini quiz. And it's all gamified, and they're trying to up their points and their levels. And we're tracking their progress through this app. So they're learning the content, they're doing ongoing assessment, they're proving mastery, and the teacher's not doing any of the content delivery. The child's working on their platform, and the teacher is tracking their progress. And when they get stuck, then the teacher comes in to assist them and says, share your screen with me. Let me talk you through it. Let me help you with that. Okay. Do you assess children with ADHD the same way you would the rest of the kids? How does it work? Great question. So what I would say about this is the way that your child accesses their work and the way that we can individualize their timetable maximizes on their areas of strength. So we're able to design timetables which make sense for a child with ADHD. So one of the things that we know about a child with ADHD is it's not great to tell them to sit on a hard chair for an hour doing math sums without moving. So what we can do there is we can say, why don't we start with 15 minutes of maths in the morning before Pod Connect? Then you'll have Pod Connect, and then you'll take a break, and then you'll do another 15 minutes of maths later on. And then you get up and you go kick a soccer ball, and then you come back, and then let's do another 15 minutes of maths. And we can create a timetable that leans into their strengths and their preferences. And then the built-in assessment is still happening the same way, but they're much more comfortable in that space. Okay. Okay, great question. If I want to equip our teacher with insights into my child's personality, likes, interests, this is fantastic. Please reach out to your teacher. Yes, do it by email. Start by email. Your teacher will communicate with you by email. Would love to hear more about your child over email, and we'll obviously engage with your child as well. And then at some point in the year, probably towards the end, you will have a face-to-face with your teacher, online with your child and your teacher. But even before then, if you'd like to meet up with your teacher, we can definitely arrange an opportunity for you to meet. And maybe what I'd suggest is, the teacher can have a looking in session one morning where parents are welcome to pop in and introduce themselves and say hello to everybody. Okay. Right, I'm going to read this one out loud. Should my child struggle to meet the mastery target in a specific subject, what point do we look at additional assistance and recommendations? And what would this assistance then entail? Do we have to then get our own tutor, or is the first additional line of support still co-based? Really, really good question. What we want to do is we want to create a space where the vast majority of academic support for the vast majority of learners is handled by our systems naturally, and we're expecting to handle it ourselves. We want to build it into our systems. That's why we've done things like created teacher time, created daily contact points with your teacher, so that there are many opportunities for academic support to happen naturally. Because I would say this, every child needs academic support. Not some children, every child. Every adult needs academic support. I mean, if I'm learning something new, I cannot learn it in isolation. I have to have support while I'm learning it. The level of support might vary. It might vary per child, and it might vary per subject or per topic or per age. Child might need more support in one age than another age. And so what we want to do is we want to create systems which are able to handle a good amount of support built in, which is what we've done, particularly with the check-ins and the teacher times. That said, there are times where a child will need support beyond what COA is able to offer. What would happen there is the teacher would be monitoring your child and will flag for the child first. You're falling behind in a subject, or I can see some potential problems in a subject area. So the teacher will flag it first with the child and will address it with the child. They'll do check-ins, they'll do teacher times. If that doesn't resolve the issue, or that the challenge is too great, the teacher will then refer to the parent and to me. So the teacher will get in touch with you and say, just to let you know, I've had a couple of teacher times with maths. Seems like she's really struggling in multiplying fractions. I've CC'd in Mark, I've looped him into the conversation, and then we start having a conversation. And at that point, what I might suggest is something like, let's try changes to the timetable. Let's try some more teacher time. Let's put them into a study group with some other peers. So we try a few different mechanisms, see how it goes for a week. Okay, things are still struggling with maths. The next step for me would be what we call a benchmarking assessment. We don't do this often, but we do it sometimes. If we feel like there are particular gaps in a child's history in a subject, or we feel like there are particular needs for a child, we might say, let's do a benchmarking assessment in the subject. We have some great online tools that we use, which show us a very detailed picture of all of the gaps and weaknesses in a child's sort of curriculum history for a subject. So if a child is in grade 7 maths, it shows us their understanding through grade 7, grade 6, grade 5, grade 4 maths. We take that map, we sit with you as the parent, and we look at it together as teachers and parents, and we, okay, this is what we're seeing in the benchmarking assessments. What measures do we need to put in place? And sometimes that involves external tutoring. We might say something like, is there a family member who can assist them once a week for an hour? Or can you hire a tutor in the area to assist them once a week for an hour? In some situations, we have family members actually sitting in with the child for certain parts of the day, if that's a possibility. So we get into a conversation with you as the parents. We also might decide to move them back in their academic program. So we say, actually, they need to go back in their maths program and fill in some of the gaps from the previous year. But that all happens over the weeks as we get to know your child and as we have a relationship with you as the parents. That's all navigated between us as a school and you. Okay. Work that gets done at home in their exam pads or books, do we ever send that to you? Scan or email? How much printing will they need to do? Great question. Printing is always optional for grade 4 to 9. Grade 10 to 12 will need to do some more printing, but grade 4 to 9 printing is always optional. If some things are easily printed and your child would prefer to have it printed, they're welcome to. but we don't expect it. We don't require it at any point. Everything is online. In terms of what they do in their physical books, so we're going to ask the grade 4 to 6s to have an exercise book for each of the key subject areas. And the grade 7 to 9s will have exam pads and files, which they write in and then file things away. The work that's going into those, the handwritten work, is things like they're doing an English, what do you call it, essay. It's a long day. They're doing an English essay and they're doing the planning by hand. So we see value in that. We see value in doing some handwritten mind maps, for example. So we want them to do the handwritten mind map, but then we actually want them to type the essay on their computer. Or we want them to do the first draft by hand and then type it up on their computer. What they submit to us is the final draft. It's what goes online. Then they file away the mind map or they file away the summary notes. When they're doing maths, they always have to do maths with a pen in their hand. The maths will be done online on a platform like Khan Academy, but they have to be working with a pen and a notepad, and they're working things out and they're drawing pictures and they're doing calculations, and then they're plugging things online. They then file that away into their file. We don't always ask to see what they've filed away, but the teacher will occasionally say, why don't you hold up your book for me, flick through it a bit. Okay, looks like you're on track. Whoa, looks like you're really struggling with your filing system. Let's try and get on top of that. The English teacher might pop in and say, your poem that you wrote for me was not your usual standard. Can I see the planning that you did for that? And the child will have to go to their file and open it up and find their planning and go, there's my planning. And the teacher will go, okay, now I understand why you handed in what you handed in. You know, let's talk about your planning. Let's talk about your mind map that you did, but it won't be the norm. Typically, we're just looking at what they're submitting. Okay, I think I just answered it in that question as well. We may even book tutors as parents together to help our kids together so they feel more supported. And so do the parents, taking turns to either oversee or arrange. Oh, Michelle, that's a great idea. Love that idea. Sort of like cluster tutorials. That's wonderful. Please won't you let me know how that goes? That sounds like a fabulous idea. and to say on that, something that I love doing at COA is if you are going to have a long-term tutor system, whether it's once a week or once a month, or you got someone popping into cluster groups or whatever it is, if it's going to be the same tutor, put them in touch with us. We love to be in contact with tutors who are working regularly with the kids and find out, what are you seeing in your tutor sessions? This is what I'm seeing on their dashboard. These are the areas that they've really struggled on their platforms. Won't you do some extra work on that next week? So we really do like to have a relationship with tutors if they're regularly involved. Olivia, I'm very thirsty after all that talking. Am I allowed to cook something? Yes, you're allowed to go and cook something for the kids. And yes, I'm going to have something to drink because that was a long session. Thank you. Thank you. All the best to you too. I think we've reached the end of the questions. If you do have more questions, please drop me an email, mark@coacademy.com. Can't wait to start on Thursday with the boys and girls. Thank you so much for making some time to be with us all. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Well done for making it all the way to the end. That was a long one. Well done. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.